ideas. We look forward to doing more work with the youth and implementing their ideas. So I just wanted to come here to thank all of you and have a great evening.
Hey, Salamai, on behalf of the entire council and the citizens, we want to thank you and the Buoy Youth Council for what you did. Putting on that first town hall, it was exciting, it was great feedback, and we look forward to supporting you further in the future.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Next we will have, and please bear with me as I try to read it, Stephanie Municipal.
Hi, thank you, Council, for having me, and good evening. As some of you all may know, I am a student at Bowie High School, and what some of you guys may not know is that a student of ours went through a journey and a fight that we can only imagine. This school year, our school has huddled around one student in support, Sophia Peck. Last spring, during her sophomore year, Sophia was only 15 when she was diagnosed with a very rare ovarian cancer, small cell carcinoma of the ovary, hypercalcemic type. If you don't know what that is, it's probably because there have only been less than 500 recorded cases since 1979 when it was discovered. This is a very rare and aggressive type of cancer. Since then, Sophia put on a very strong fight. Throughout the school year, we rallied around her and her family, raising money, hosting events, and bringing support for her. She was such a staple in our school's community. And even though a lot of people like myself didn't know her personally, her journey touched our hearts, and we stuck together as a school to support her as much as we could. Throughout all of last year, her family went through treatment after treatment, but nothing seemed to help their wishes as the tumors only got more and more aggressive. Nevertheless, Sophia was still an avid scholar and went to all her virtual classes while being hospitalized and doing her job to maintain her hard work pre-diagnosis. Sophia had such a positive personality that spread across those who ever got to see or know her. Having that type of charisma and courage every day during an unimaginable fight was inspiring at the very least. During December of last year, Sophia got the news that her cancer had exploded in its growth and had spread in various locations of her body. And her body had already not responded to 12 chemotherapy treatments, and the doctors informed her that there were no more possible treatments to try. On December 7th, Sophia ended her chemotherapy treatments, and she and her family continued the fight by focusing on pain management. This December, Bowie High had organized a 5K walk/run to help raise money for Sophia's charity of choice, Flashes of Hope. This is so one day that someone like Sophia gets diagnosed with any type of cancer and there's a treatment for them. It wasn't until January 2nd where we lost such a beautiful soul. The fight that Sophia and her family put up is truly remarkable and unforgettable. Sophia had the bravery that many would never see at such a young age, and her life deserves to be honored in any way possible. It's very significant that today's meeting was held today, as this is because Sophia would have turned 17 on this day. And although she is no longer with us, her spirit always will be. I always carry around my keychain that I got of her everywhere I go to honor her life, and I promise to keep her legacy alive. And Sophia was such an important member of our community and such an honorary bulldog, and today I want to recognize and honor her story and life. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. At this time, we will move on to presentations, and we have a Heritage Month presentation by the Diversity Committee.
Hi. First and foremost, I just want to say that was so beautiful. Thank you so much
Yes,
for
it
sharing.
was.
That really touched so much of our hearts. I work in public health, and that speaks to volumes to so many people. So thank you so much for sharing Sophia's story. Also, I just want to say good evening to all of you. I'm very excited to be here. My name is Brittany Bunn, a member, of course, of the City of Bowie Diversity Committee, and it is such a pleasure to join you all tonight as we celebrate the kickoff of Asian American and Native Hawaiian Pacific Islander Heritage Month. It was in June of 1977 when Representatives Frank Horton of New York and Norman Yoshio Mainita of California, who was also the first Asian American to serve in the cabinet, not once, but twice, first under the leadership of President Bill Clinton in 2000 as the Secretary of Commerce, and then again in 2001 as the Secretary of Transportation, appointed by then George W. Bush, called upon President Jimmy Carter at the time to proclaim the first 10 days of May as Asian Pacific Heritage Week. For Representative Mainita, someone who at the tender age of 11, along with his family, was one of the many Asian Americans during World War II, inhumanely forced into internment camps, not for protection and safety as the propaganda of the time suggested, but because of their race, background, culture, ethnicity, and roots. For him, having a time of commemoration of Asian American heritage was an opportunity for Asian Americans, as he phrased it, to explain who we are, the diversity in our community, and how our experiences have shaped us in the nation we love. You know, it was Yo-Yo Ma, the talented and renowned celloist, who once said, "When you learn something from people or from a culture, you accept it as a gift, and it is your lifelong commitment to preserve it and build upon it." Fast forwarding to October of 1978, our nation did just that. President Carter expanded the observance of Asian American Heritage Week to an annual celebration. And 12 years later, in 1990, President George H.W. Bush extended the week-long celebration to a month, ultimately signing into law in 1992 the designation of May, as which we now know as Asian American and Native Hawaiian Pacific Islander Heritage Month. As we recall the perseverance and historic triumphs of those who have come before us and paved the way for such a time as this, a true celebration of achievements and cultural impacts within our society, we would be remiss to only focus on the past, for each day, Asian American and Native Hawaiian Pacific Islanders have been living out history. Just look at U.S. Senator Lada Tammy Duckworth of Illinois, Iraq war veteran, Public Heart recipient, and former Assistant Secretary of the U.S., has been instrumental force within Congress from advocating for families, suicide prevention within vets, and even passing the Troop Talent Act to help returning veterans find jobs in the private sector. Or Michelle Kwan, American figure skater, who was one of the most decorated athletes in the sport, combining artistry and elegance with athleticism. She won more than 40 championships, including a record-tying 9 U.S. titles. How about Eldrick Wood, better known as Tiger Woods, on the golf course and probably, arguably, the best golfer of all time, who indeed had one of the greatest amateur careers in the history of the game and became the dominant player on the professional circuit in the late 1990s and 2000s, breaking barriers so others can see themselves within the sport. And chart-topping artist Peter Jean Hernandez, who has given us hits such as The Way You Are, Leave the Door Open, Uptown Funk, and 24 Magic. Don't know who I'm referring to yet? No worries. A true performer known for his stage presence, retro showmanship, and the ability to seamlessly blend a wide range of musical styles, including pop, R&B, funk, soul, reggae, disco, and rock. Grammy Award winner Bruno Mars, or one of the masterminds behind Singing Pets Online and Funny Home Videos, Steve Chen, co-founder of YouTube, which a year after its launch in 2005 was ranked as the 10th most popular website, estimated to now be worth up to $160 billion. But it's also a platform that streamlines and maximizes information sharing in the most profound ways, from recipes that grace the dinner tables to teaching the next generation of coders and women in STEM through what some may call affectionately YouTube University, or encouraged a first-time graduate by through a video to press on when they felt like their dreams were unattainable. Consider Eric Wan, co-founder of Zoom, who during the peak of the COVID-19 pandemic, his platform connected families and communities when space had to be distant and hugs weren't feasible. And I wish I could tell you so much more about other influential pioneers within their respective industries. Fashion designer Vera Wang, Kapila Chawla, astronaut Cecilia Chung, activist and longtime advocate on behalf of the LGBTQIA+ communities, immigrants, and people living with HIV and AIDS. Dr. Min Chang, who was a pioneer in in vitro fertilization. Bruce Lee, we all know him. Martial artist, martial arts instructor, actor, director, screenwriter, producer, and philosopher. Jerry Yang, the co-founder of internet giant YouTube. John Chow, an American actor, and Kamala D. Harris, a soror of mine, aka an attorney and current and first female vice president, and the highest ranking female official in the U.S. And may we look in our own backyards, from our friends, our family members, doctors, lawyers, artists, scientists, leaders, coaches, teammates, baristas, local business owners, community members right here in the city of Bowie. These are their stories, their culture, our collective history, full of trailblazing, innovative, determination, groundbreaking, rhythmic, soulful, intentional, and impactful presidents. So today, and every day forth, may we honor the many strides of Asian Americans and Native Hawaiian Pacific Islanders. This is our legacy. This is their legacy and our gift back to them. I know I do. Every day I look at my own family tree and our Filipino and Hawaiian roots. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have another presentation?
I don't believe so, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. And thank you so much for speaking so eloquently and encapsulating all that one could fit in a moment of how proud we all should be of all the heritage we have here in the city of Bowie. Thank you so very much. All right, we will now move on to city boards and, well, when do we want to do the presentation? Right now? Okay. At this time, we would like to do a presentation. I would ask Tamika Washington to please come forward. Comes right there. Ms. Washington, the city of Bowie, Maryland would like to present you with a proclamation. Be it hereby known to all that the Council of the City of Bowie, Maryland offers its sincerest appreciation to Tameeka Washington for distinguished service while serving as an advisor of the Youth Council. The Bowie City Council recognizes the important contributions to local affairs that you have provided and thanks you on behalf of all the citizens of Bowie for your efforts and dedication on behalf of our city. Presented on this second day of May, 2022, Timothy J. Adams, Mayor. Thank you for all you have done. I'd like to turn it over to Councilwoman Harrison now, if you'd like. Okay. Shall we go down? Okay.
So I just wanted to just say briefly that Tamika and I worked on the Buoy Youth Council together when I first joined the council. And it's so funny because she presented an idea to me and I had a similar idea and we kind of had a meeting of the minds. So it was wonderful. And she and I just developed a great relationship, friendship, and now she's moved out of the city. So I wanted to really make a special presentation of her and recognize her for just not only what she's done on the Bowie Youth Council, but everything that she does to just give value added back to the city and the residents. And I just so appreciate you and appreciate everything that you do. So thank you so much. And to that, I want to give you a certificate of recognition presented to Tameeka Washington, honoring your dedication and effort in helping to create the Bowie Youth Council and your service as an inaugural advisor, presented on the second day of May, 2022 by Ingrid Harrison, at-large council member. Thank you so much, Tamika. I appreciate you.
Thank you.
Here you go, Tamika. Why don't we slide over here and grab a picture? Here you go.
If I were there, I would thank you for everything that you do on behalf of the residents.
I want to invite Shelomai up to on behalf of the Bowie Youth Council. And Stephanie.
think we better get back up, right? Thank you again, Tamika. Okay, we will now move to council announcements. Any council announcements? Well, I would like to make one council announcement, and it's regarding the First Lady of Buoy, Judge Sheila Tillerson Adams. I would like to say that, as you know, the Women's History Month program was put off until last week, and I'd like to acknowledge Judge Adams for receiving the Spelman Award, which is a highly coveted award presented by the county executive. So I would like to congratulate her and all of the recipients of the scholarships for that as well. So, having said that, any other announcements anybody like to say?
I actually did have two quick things, Mr. Mayor. First, I appreciate my council colleagues for including the month of May as National Apraxia Awareness Month. And I think I recall that this was also Municipal City Clerks Week, and I just wanted to say, on behalf of all of us, a profound word of thanks to our indefatigable city clerk. After all these years, we still haven't scared you away, and we thank you for everything you do, for keeping us organized and always making us look good, even and especially when we don't deserve to. And Will I just from the bottom of my heart can't thank you enough for everything you do for our city every day. Thank you.
You're here. We'll just have to try harder.
Thank you very much. It was my pleasure serving you.
Oh.
I don't want to do it again, though. I don't want to do it again.
All right. If there are no other announcements, at this point, I would now like to move into the city manager's report.
Good evening, Mayor Adams and City Council and residents out there. We are decisively engaged in, of course, the budget review as we look at, make adjustments as you all give us direction. And that's the gist of our efforts right now, and of course, getting ready to close out the year with performance evaluations for our employees. But I have one thing as a city manager I'd like to say. 24 years ago, when I was getting out of America's Army, and I went to College Park as assistant city manager. Their city attorney was a guy named Bob Levan. And Bob Levan was the most prolific city attorney in Prince George's County at the time. And of course, I had done a lot of great things in America's Army, from infantry to aviation, but I had never done local government. So having Bob Levan coach me in a very friendly manner and with a lot of wisdom, and it was invaluable to me.
Yes.
Also, he was, Bob Levan was my friend also. And some of you may know that Bob Levan passed away last week.
Yes.
And, you know, we're all, the loss is immeasurable. Bob was the most effective city attorney I've ever seen. And I can tell you, the city council in College Park was some really tough guys, but Bob could manage them, and everybody walked away smiling, and he was very proficient, extremely proficient at the legal aspects of local government. And I'd like to remember him to you all, and to tell all of you that I shall never forget Bob Levan.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, city manager. Those are some very thoughtful words. At this time, we will now move on to the consent agenda. Entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and properly second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please respond with an aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same favor. Motion carries. We will now move to Old business. Item A, the fiscal year 2023 budget, CIP, and constant yield tax rate. I will turn it over to staff.
Good evening, Council and Mayor. Byron Matthews, Finance Director for the City of Bowie. This evening, Council, we're here to propose to you the tax rate for FY23. The state of Maryland has a requirement enacted in 1977 that a public hearing for a very specific newspaper advertisement known as a constant yield. The state requires local governments hold a hearing focused on the tax rate that will generate the same revenue as last year. For Bowie, in order to accomplish the constant yield, the tax rate will need to be lowered from 40 cents to 38 cents. We are not recommending lowering the tax rate, as it would cost the city $1.3 million in lost revenue. The benefit from lowering the tax rate on a homeowner whose house is at the median price assessed at $338,000 is about $53. And given the pressures and revenue constraints that the city is facing, we're recommending that the city maintains the 40-cent tax rate. Thank you, Mayor and Council. If you have any questions, I will answer them.
Any questions at this time?
If there's no questions, Mayor and Council, I would like to take the opportunity to allow the Financial Advisory Board to give their annual review of the FY23 proposed budget. Tonight we have with us the chairman of the Financial Advisory Committee, Carl Robinson, and he will enlighten you on their perspective of the FY23 proposed budget. Carl?
Thank you, sir.
Good evening.
Good evening. Good evening. As you are aware, the Financial Advisory Committee was formed in 1998, and two of its deliverables are to, one, review and advise the council on the city's fiscal condition, and two, to enhance the distribution of financial information to the community. The committee completed the first deliverable by reviewing the fiscal year 2023 proposed budget and delivering this letter to the council. This letter is advising the council of the city's fiscal condition. However, prior to reading the results of our budget review, the committee would like to recognize and commend the city council, the city manager, the finance department director, and all associated staff and personnel for their hard work in providing this budget draft. This committee has worked closely with the finance department director and knows firsthand how responsive and efficient that office is in coordinating the budget process. They have exercised due diligence and creativity in ensuring that all important activities across the city departments are adequately addressed, even as the property tax rate remains constant for the 13th consecutive year. Needless to say, we are extremely proud of our city. This letter is addressed to the City of Bowie Council, dated 25 April 2022, and the subject is the proposed FY 2023 annual budget. After thoroughly reviewing the FY 2023 proposed budget, the committee would like to draw attention to 5 key areas: the general fund balance policy, the revenue and expenditure strategy, the golf course expenditures, rising cost, citizen accountability measures, and routine water plant engineering and project management. The specific recommendations, background, and related discussions of these 5 key areas are enclosed as an appendix to this letter. I will now read each of the recommendations and some of the more pertinent background items and discussion points, and conclude by referencing 4 general comments. The general fund balance policy. The city's general fund supports the balancing of the city's shortfall in revenues over expenditures. And in light of this, City Council adopted a policy to maintain the general fund's balance at a level no lower than 25% of expenditures. While this metric has served the city well in years past, the realities of today's post-pandemic fiscal challenges necessitate a relook of this policy. As detailed in the FY 2023 proposed budget, the city's general fund balance has been declining steeply and is forecast to be completely depleted in about 2 to 3 years. We recommend the City Council consider changing the policy related to general fund balance from its 25% of expenditure threshold. We recommend a review of multiple options to include the pros and cons of an option to tie the general fund balance to a threshold that caps capital improvement program transfers to a percentage of the tax rate. For example, capping transfers from the general fund at, say, 10% of the current property tax rate will limit the FY 2023 general fund transfer to $3.31 million versus the proposed $18.5 million in FY 2023. This helps achieve a better balance between revenue expenditures, expectations, and expenditures, while ensuring the availability of some general fund balance for future years. Revenue and expenditure strategy. General fund revenues from all financing sources increased to accommodate the 15% increase in general fund expenditures. This year, the estimated increase is attributable to the increase in taxable assessed basis, a trend which is expected to continue for all the reasons provided in the budget. Embedded in these numbers is the stark decrease in revenues from Bowie Town Center. In this regard, we applaud the implementation of new economic development strategy to focus on growing the economic base across the city. Despite increasing revenues, the escalating burn rate of fund balance is alarming. This situation demands an immediate mitigating response. We should include a strategy for both increasing revenues and decreasing expenditures, with a view to achieve equilibrium. We urge that you consider a plan. This is our recommendation, that you consider a plan to adjust expenditures, to develop an optimal strategy for both revenue increase and expenditure decrease. This strategy should consider the implications of a decline in revenues related to Bowie Town Center and golf course. Golf course expenditures. The Buoy Golf Course. The level of the proposed expenditure is high despite the facility being managed, run, and maintained by a third party. Whereas the total multi-year expenditure up to 2028 and beyond was estimated at $4.49 million a year ago, this total multi-year expenditure is now estimated at $9.8 million over the same period. Of particular concerns are the cart path improvements, which were estimated a year ago at $1.68 million for execution in FY 2023. But that has been divided into 5 phases of $500,000 each, totaling $2.5 million, which is an increase of nearly 49%. Although we recognize the benefit of additional personnel support, we would ask you to consider monitoring the contractual services expenditures. The FY23 proposed budget anticipate these costs to increase 11%. The breakdown of these costs is clearly explained and are relevant. However, it would seem that the huge spike begs questions around planning. We recommend that given the current financial constraints, we do not believe that the high level of expenditures on the Bowie Golf Course bears commensurate benefits for the residents of Bowie. Accordingly, we ask for the review and reconsideration of the proposed expenditures, as it does not seem appropriate from a cost-benefit standpoint at this time. Rising cost, citizen accountability measures. Supply chain issues remain a concern due to the pandemic, causing prices to escalate more than anticipated and planned for. Although many of these increases may be unavoidable, we recommend putting in place a process that ensures the city is questioning these increases, validating their legitimacy, and sharing the rationale for the increase with the citizens of Bowie. Of note, stormwater management. The estimated cost for the Greenleaf Pond restoration construction has increased by over 80%, from $100,000 to $182,000 from a year ago. We realize that there is always the possibility of a cost increase involving a multi-year project. But this is a sizable increase over what was originally proposed and should be explained further to the citizens of Bowie. The Bowie Playhouse. Similar to the stormwater management, we also know the significant variation in cost estimates for the fly tower roof replacement and lower roof repairs. Whereas these costs estimated at around $105,000 just a year ago, new cost estimates are now $140,000, an increase of over 33%. Bowie Golf Course. The increase in multi-year expenditure estimates and the increase in cart path improvements, as previously discussed, should also be held to a citizens' accountability process, given the significant shift. The Bowie Ice Arena. Following the termination of the Bowie Iceplex project in FY 2020 and the related termination costs, we know that the unspent bond proceeds were applied to other capital expenditures. We encourage council to firm up the cost estimates for the design and construction of the new Bowie Ice Arena facility to gauge the adequacy of the current multi-year expenditures of over $12 million. We recommend the council create accountability measures to stem significant variations from initial cost estimates and firm up current high cost estimates. Routine water plant engineering and project management. The water plant is yet another project where we've noted significant year-over-year variation in cost estimates. Whereas the well 5 replacement was estimated to cost $75,000 a year ago, it is now estimated to cost $250,000, an increase of 233%. A wide increase of this magnitude may indicate the need for better and timely engineering and/or project management involvement in the cost estimation process. While acknowledging the need for the overhaul of the city's public water distribution system, we must highlight the substantial increase in the multi-year cost estimates. Whereas the total multi-year expenditure up to 2028 and beyond was estimated at $11.89 million a year ago, this total multi-year expenditure is now estimated at $15.37 million over the same period, despite federal grants awards totaling $4.75 million. We recommend that the council ensure routine infrastructure maintenance. That concludes the committee's 5 recommendations. I will now read our 4 general comments. Water and sewer systems. The proposed rate increases of 28 and 41 cents respectively to support a recapitalization program supporting both the water and sewer systems seem prudent and justified. We appreciate efforts to migrate the Ken Hill Center's meeting room to the senior center, which may result in expanded exercise and wellness programs, representing a move in the right direction. Thank you for leaving a placeholder in the FY23 objectives for addressing a possible outcome of the FY22 objective of hosting the Youth Forum on May 19, 2022. This is important as a critical need may surface at that May event. The FY23 objective of replacing the existing Buoy landscape on Route 197 and Ken Hill Drive is highly anticipated, and as this is a true landmark of the city of Bowie, we are anxiously awaiting the unveiling of Landscape 2.0. And my favorite, we applaud the management of the mosquito control program. Please do all you can do to keep those pesky things in their place. In closing, we appreciate City Council's consideration of these recommendations. The committee wishes to thank you for entrusting us with this responsibility to serve the city of Bowie, its residents, and the council. We remain ready to serve the city in accordance with our committee charter. Signed by members of the City of Bowie's Financial Advisory Committee, Ms. Patricia Peterson, Ms. Meglin Knights, Ms. Muzar Jah, Mr. William Olukoya, and Mr. Carl Robinson. Sincerely signed, Carl Robinson, Chair, City of Bowie Financial Advisory Committee. Thank you.
Thank you so very much. At this point, any questions for council? None. Staff, any comments at this point?
Sir, we're grateful for the review by the committee, sir. Thank you.
And thank you again to the committee. We appreciate that.
Mayor, this item, it did have a public hearing for
We're
it.
about to open that now. At this time, I'd like to open the public hearing. Do we have anyone signed to speak?
We don't have anyone signed this evening tonight, but we did receive 2 comments via email, which has been forwarded to council for the record.
Okay, thank you. And council has received those, correct? Yes. Okay, thank you. Hearing no, this evening, we will now close the public hearing. And we'll turn over to council if they'd like to make a recommendation.
Sorry, I just want to make sure I have the language correct. Mr. Mayor, I'd like to move.
Council member staff is for the constant yield tax rate.
Right. Where's the actual language that you need? Or am I just moving that we maintain the constant yield rate as proposed? Okay. Mr. Mayor, I'd like to move that we maintain the constant yield tax rate as proposed by staff.
No, it's maintain the tax rate as proposed.
Yes, maintain.
See, that's why I want to make sure it's correct. I don't want to lose this $1.5 million. I would like to maintain our tax rate as proposed.
Second.
Second.
Okay.
It's been moved and properly second.
That. I like to second.
Okay, it's been moved and properly second. Any discussion? Hearing none, call for the vote.
Aye.
All in favor, please respond with an aye.
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 Opposed, same favor. Hearing none, motion carries. Thank you, Councilman. All right. We will now move to the water filtration rebate program.
Mr. Mayor, City Council, this is an update that was requested a month or so ago as to how the program was going. Jose Aldeus, our Public Works Director, is prepared to provide the update. Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor Adams,
Good evening.
distinguished council members, city manager, assistant city manager, colleagues, and dear residents. As Mr. Lott mentioned, my name is Jose Aldeus. For the record, I'm the Public Works Department Director. Before I start describing a summary, background, and report about this rebate program, I would like to take a few minutes to thank to all and every resident that allow me to enter their homes. To have a very good discussion, not only about the water issue, but also about other services that the Department of Public Works offers to the residents. For all of those that are online, thank you for welcoming with a smile, listening to my explanations, and above all, agreeing to work as a team for the best future of our city. Now I'm going to proceed to a background. Just a reminder, this program offers up to $1,800 rebate for the purchase and installation of water filters or a whole house water filtration system. The eligibility for the rebate is for any property served by the City of Buoy water system, not WSSE, that meets the requirements that the City Council has set. The property owner, not a tenant, must apply for the rebate. So those were the conditions that we initiate in the application process. The requirements to be eligible for the water filter system rebate, the council was very clear in their orders or instructions or directions that two parameters must be present. One has to be significance, and the second had to be persistent. And every single visit that I made, and I did make all the tests myself, I made sure that the residents understood these guidelines. And so with that caveat, there were 4 conditions listed on our website. The first one is to show significant and persistent evidence of sedimentation in water running through the property water fixtures measured by turbidity test. 3 turbidity tests will be performed by Buoy water utility staff at the property to determine if there is a significant and persistent sedimentation in the water. Third, testing will be done using a turbidimeter. A reading of 50 NTU turbidity units indicates high concentrations of particulate matter or cloudiness and makes the property eligible for the rebate. Tests will be conducted on 3 separate occasions with at least 2 weeks between each test. On the website, I'm sorry we don't have the report, but you must have a copy of the report. There was a turbidity sample with gradation starting at 10 all the way to 150, showing the different, the different tones for discoloration. The results of that I'm going to describe next are as of April 27, 2022, the day before I was supposed to submit this report. The total number of applications received was 81. Even though we specify in the website that people in Buoy where they get their water from WACC will not be eligible for the rebate, we still got 6 applicants that apply. So we deem those not eligible. So that gives us the number of applications in the City of Buoy distribution system to 75. The residents that I tested personally, 69, and residents to be tested on 428 and 429, 6, so that will be a number of 75. Just to let you know that we're not lagging behind, that this is a priority for us. And the highest turbidity level registered was 21.8 NTUs. The lowest turbidity level was 0 NTUs. The median turbidity level, 7.5 NTUs. I put the median as opposed to the average because that will give us an idea how the test is stacked in terms of you order all by ranking. Except for 1 resident, no turbidity was observed visually in any of the samples collected. Therefore, no resident qualified for the rebate.
Thank you so very much for that. I will turn it over to council for questions. I think Councilwoman Harrison has a question.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much, Jose. I appreciate that. My question is, why is the turbidity level set at 50?
If you look at the scale shown on the report, that's what we presented, and that is pretty much similar to the samples that were displayed on the website by different residents complaining about the discoloration.
And so, okay, so it's set at 50, and so the highest turbidity level was 21.8 for 1 resident.
Correct.
And that's out of the 69 residents that you tested.
Correct.
And so how frequently will you go back? How long will that, you said you'll go back every 2 weeks for how many homes?
Ma'am, council member, the requirements are 3 consecutive, so if the first didn't work, the resident automatically doesn't qualify because it fails the persistence condition that the city council has set for the test. So once, it had to be 3 consecutive, above 50 tests.
You have to be 3 consecutive above 50.
Yes, correct.
Okay, so no one's actually qualified for that, has had that happen yet?
You are correct.
Okay. So once all of this once you've gone through all the applications and has tested everyone, they can come back to be retested. They can put in another application if they experience a brown water problem, let's say 2 months from now. Correct?
That will be after, the assistant city manager is not in his head, so I'm gonna nod my head too. So, because it's not my place to decide. I do whatever the city manager and the city council tells me to do. So I'll be glad to do that.
Well, there would have to be an adjustment to the assignment for Jose to do that, because technically those people have been disqualified out of the net. If you all want us to reconsider them at a certain period of time past that, 40 days, 50 days, 30 days, we can and have them and allow them to be eligible to resubmit the application so many days after, then we'll continue to evaluate.
Right, and my reason for asking that question is the pipes aren't fixed yet. They're not, they haven't been fixed or replaced. So the brown water issue may continue, or, it might not, it's not going to happen continuously, but they might experience a problem a few months or so down the road. Just wanted to make sure that, if the levels are higher or they seem to see brown water more frequently than they are now, then maybe if they could come back to get it checked.
You're saying that if time passes, the circumstances change.
Correct.
Or they believe that they've changed.
Correct.
Well, that would take, if the council wants us to do that, you need to give us a time limit for where we can reconsider them. And be it 30 days later, 45 days, 60 days later. What would be your direction on that?
Well, I mean, just for me personally, what I was thinking is if you have someone come back, then you can actually let us know at that time. If somebody feels the need to put in another application, I didn't want to put a time limit on it right now, but if somebody has feels like they're experiencing this problem more frequently and needs to put in an application, then we can revisit it at that time.
Well, I mean, we can do that. I mean, that's what the council wants. What we don't want, of course, is, you go out and visit a person and measure them on a Tuesday, and they call you back Monday and say, well, come back and do it again. And because there are man hours associated with it.
No, I understand.
But if that's the standard you all want to set, that we come back within, after 2 weeks, or because some of the applications, the water was crystal clear and had nothing wrong with it.
Right.
So, and that's great. One of the things this tells us is that maybe the water currently isn't as bad as we thought in many places. And we do have some hot spots, and we're focusing on them with the next pipe replacement. So what is the pleasure of the council? Should we, how much time should pass, if any, that we accept reapplications?
If I may, City Manager, and you may be able to help us with this, because I understand the question and the concern that the Councilwoman is sharing is, when it comes to resources, to be able to do this, if we were to try and do this on a rolling basis, what would be the time frame you would think that you would be able to handle this without us increasing staffing and other things along these lines? Because we know even this puts additional work on what they're doing. Do you have a general idea of what might be a rolling time frame if we were to be able to do that? Or do you need time to look at that, or what's the?
Well, I'd like to talk to the engineers and about a minute before I get back to you on that one. But based on what Mr. Alderuse has presented, it's of my professional opinion that if somebody is tested and there is clear water and no issues on May the 1st, then they should be eligible, unless some emergency situation occurs, to reapply June 1st.
Yeah.
That way, I don't have to hire a new public works director, engineer to be going around doing all this, because he's got that leadership thing going on, and we won't miss anybody, because we have been responsive to this. And
City Manager,
75.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean.
Yeah, so that's what I think, 30 days.
Yeah,
It would be something we could manage.
okay, because I think you touched on something too that's very important, and that is if there was an emergency situation, you know, if someone passed that, we could
Well, that
potentially.
changes everything. If there's an emergency situation, we'll go out there, respond, as we always do with our utility.
Gotcha. All right, thank you, City Manager, and again, just, if you could, give us some more feedback. I know you just mentioned maybe 30 days, I know you want to talk.
Well, we'll go back and talk to everybody out
And
there,
then
come back
just
and
come on
with
back
a
and give us
number,
an idea.
and send
Okay,
out an
good.
email or something like that, and
Sounds good.
what we can manage.
Thank you.
No, I just want to say thank you. I appreciate that. I just want to make sure, the residents feel comfortable with their water at this point. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Councilman Dufour, Wolfie?
Thank you. Quick question for you. Of the people who applied, was there any significant number of applicants from the hotspot areas that you've seen? Or were these scattered across the network?
It's scattered. I actually, I was hoping that we'll get more applicants from the spotted area, but that's not the case. I've been all over. And that was a great thing for me to be in contact with residents from different areas.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions from council? If not, thank you so very much, staff. We appreciate that. All right, we will now be moving on to new business. We will go to item B, adoption of resolution R-1522. I'll turn it over to staff.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is the adoption resolution R-1522, adopting a housing community development annual action plan for fiscal year 2023. Mr. Buggs is indisposed at this time, and he's got a very capable successor in K-Star ready to present this to you. Okay?
Good evening, everyone. My name is K-Star, and I work in the grants department. I am sharing my screen, so hopefully you can see this presentation, yes? Yes, can everyone see the presentation?
Yes.
Excellent, great. So this is the third public hearing on the adoption of the annual action plan for FY 2023 as part of our Community Development Block Grant Program. We've held two prior public hearing presentations earlier in the month of April. For everyone's knowledge, the Community Development Block Grant Program, or CDBG funding, is a grant that we get from HUD, the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. And these grants are available to municipalities, states, and counties across the country. They develop viable urban communities. They provide decent housing, expand economic opportunities, and address at least one of the national objectives as defined by HUD. The national objectives being benefiting low to moderate income persons, eliminating slums and blight, or fulfilling an urgent community need. CDBG eligible activities include acquisition, demolition, or rehabilitation of real property, construction of public facilities, public services, assistance to community-based development organizations, economic development, energy conservation and renewable energy projects, and planning and administration of these projects. The CDBG process is a 5-year one. We are currently in the 4th year of the 5-year plan, which spanned from fiscal year 2019 to fiscal year 2023. We conduct a needs assessment every 5 years related to housing, human services, and non-housing related community development activities. We establish the estimated cost for 5 years, the goals and objectives and performance measures that we'll use to evaluate the programs. And every year we submit an annual action plan detailing what resources we will commit to these projects, the activities we'll perform, and the performance measures that we will use to evaluate our progress. At the end of every year, we publish a evaluation report, a consolidated annual evaluation report, or CAPER, that covers the actual expenditures under the programs, the progress, status, and impact of the programs, and the deliverables. This is part of the citizen participation process. Every 5 years, as part of devising our CDBG strategy, we poll our residents to assess their needs and priorities and coordinate community development strategies and design our projects to address the needs identified by residents. We emphasize participation by persons of low or moderate income, particularly low and moderate income residents of the city of Bowie, and provide access to all CDBG documents at public libraries, rec centers, and at cityofbowie.org/grants under CDBG. We also allow residents of the target area to review and respond to our proposed activities every year, and we incorporate their comments into our reports. For fiscal year 2023, the total allocation of the CDBG program will be $196,435 as dispersed by the 3 programs that we have. $169,535 of it will be for the single-family rehab program, which provides energy-efficient upgrades to resident houses. $25,000 will be for the workforce development and life skills training program, which we operate every year in the spring in cooperation with Bowie Youth and Family Services. And we will also expend $1,900 on our annual fair housing training, which we just had last week, or 2 weeks ago. The single-family rehabilitation program is part of our 5-year plan, and it provides housing rehabilitation for all eligible residents, and workforce training are our other highest priority need. HUD has determined that seniors are a presumptive low to moderate income population, and the pilot of this program focused on seniors, but the program is now open to all city residents. The city has determined that there is no priority need based on race, gender, or ethnicity based on the demographic information available about the city. We work with community partners to help forward our goals with the CDBG program, including the Bowie Emergency Aid Fund and Food Pantry, which provides and coordinates local service providers and faith-based efforts to serve low-income and or homeless residents. This organization also coordinates with Prince George's County Homeless Service Coalition and human service agencies to provide resources and collect uniform client data on the residents that they serve, which they provide to us for our reporting. We also partner with the Maryland Department of Housing and Community Development, or DHCD, with their weatherization assistance program. We refer residents to that program to make sure that they are able to get access to both programs when they're doing home repairs and improvements. So this is our first proposed fiscal year 2023 project, the Single Family Rehabilitation Program. This program is limited based on household size and income. The income limits, as you can see, there's a small chart on this flyer. Those are also available on the City of Bowie website, and it provides up to $10,000 for homeowners to make energy efficient improvements and safety related improvements to their homes. This is a diagram showing how much energy can be lost through inefficient insulation, walls, roofs, and windows and doors. So this program also helps homeowners make upgrades to those systems to prevent energy loss. Our second proposed FY 2023 project is the annual Workforce Development and Life Skills Training Program. We are currently operating the 4th annual Workforce Development and Life Skills Training Program. We'll be launching our Innovation and Entrepreneurship module this week. We completed the first module back in April, and we will follow a similar pattern for FY23, possibly not in a virtual environment, but remains to be seen. So this is the development schedule of the annual action plan. We held our first public hearing online on March the 16th. We held a second public hearing on April the 6th. And the draft of annual action plan is available on the city website and in other locations around the city through May 18th. This evening is the city council hearing, which is the 3rd public hearing. And once we have concluded the public hearing portion, we'll incorporate comments from the publics into the final draft. And then the city council will adopt the annual action plan via resolution, and we can deliver it to HUD. This is just a brief summary of the other programs that the Office of Grant Development and Administration is responsible for, including grant writing and research, submitting grant applications. If we're awarded funds, we manage them and complete all audits and necessary reports, as well as program evaluation and management as depending on the way the project is funded. The Life Skills Training and Workforce Development Program, the HUD CDBG Program Administration that I just went over. We've also have a number of other programs to benefit residents, including a first-time homebuyers assistance program, our fair housing training, which is available to the public, our single-family rehab program, as well as working with developers and the county and other interested parties in affordable housing policy and implementation of low-income dwelling units across the city, as well as the low-income household water assistance program, which we are coordinating with the state to assist people who are on the Buoy system who are have arrearages with their water accounts. We're working with the state to reach out to those folks, and we also do homeless services and outreach for the city. So if you have a comment for the FY 2023 Annual Action Plan, please submit it in writing to the Director of the Office of Grant Development and Administration, Jesse Buggs, either via letter or you can email buoyhsg@cityofbuoy.org. This concludes my presentation.
Hey, thank you very much. Appreciate that. If we could, any further comments we need to open? I'm going to open for public hearing at this time. So now open for public hearing. Do we have any comments?
No, Mayor, there's no comments for this evening.
Okay, thank you. Now declare the public hearing closed. At this point, I will open for action at this time.
Mr. Mayor, I move the adoption of Resolution R-15-22, the Housing and Community Development Annual Action Plan Fiscal Year 2023.
Second.
It's been moved and properly second. Are there any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor, please respond with an aye.
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 Opposed, same favor.
Aye. Aye.
Again, opposed, same favor. Hearing none, motion carries. We will now go to item C, the city water service.
And I'd like to compliment Kay on her excellent presentation there.
Yes.
So, I'll be talking through the situation. The purpose of our discussion today is in March, the City Council discussed at a meeting with some members that at WSSC regarding the potential of the city's water system be taken over by WSSC, faced with significant costs to address tuberculation in the city's water system. Council wanted to explore potential for transfer and responsibility of this regional water provider to this regional water provider who already serves a large portion of the Bowie residents, myself included. City Council directed us to the staff to meet with WSSC and conduct a discussion. Well, we met with WSSC on the 18th of April at about 10 a.m. The representatives from our staff included Intergovernmental Relations Engineering from WSSC, their general counsel, and several other experts in their water system and the business associated with it. For the city, we had Jose was there, his assistant director Hong Yin was there, I was there, Maddie, and assistant city manager Daniel Mears. The water system, WSSC, is governed by a regulation, which is a WSSC code of regulations, and this particular area is governed by Chapter 13.05, which is the acquisition of on-site water and sewer systems. WSSC, they coached us on all aspects of this. The evidence indicates that a system as large as ours hasn't been consumed by them in anybody's memory on the meeting, and it goes back probably 40 years. So if we were to do this, there would be some new areas to ground to tread on. But we would have to provide record plats, site plans, maps, and other plans for WSSC to evaluate. After a preliminary evaluation at our expense, an engineering feasibility report must be prepared, and once again, at our expense. WSSC's regulations details numerous components of the system to be evaluated. After the city prepares a report, WSSC evaluates and inspects the system at our expense. If accepted, the city would need to provide a complete and certified as-built drawings and plans to WSSC standards. There will need to be a legal transfer of all assets in the public right-of-way, and they would need to be prepared for the entire water system. There would also be a need for an official takeover agreement that will be worked out between us if we got to that point, and all of this will be done at city cost by their regulations. And the first step would be a joint staff review to get WSSC staff over to our site to see our evaluation documentation, inspect the system in a cursory fashion, and discuss feasibility. This would be at the city of Bowie's expense for the staff time of the engineers associated with this and others. If we get past that review, the next step would be a formal evaluation. And there is a potential for an additional unexpected cost beyond remediation of tuberculation prior to transfer. These could include costs for remediate engineering defects, deficiencies, different standards, them to us, if they're assuming their standards might be higher or different. But we may need to bear the cost of discontinuing its water production and expanding the physical interconnections with WSSC to provide water from their production systems. And as you know, WSSC has reservoirs and they take water from the Potomac River also. WSSC recommended that we hire a consultant to conduct what they refer to as an alternative analysis to determine whether it is best for the city to trade or retain a water system. Also, we noted, or they informed us, we had not verified that 49% of the federal infrastructure money for underserved communities is a revolving loan. As you all know, we've had some problems with that in the past qualifying, but you know, we have a AAA bond rating, so borrowing money isn't an issue for us currently. The budget needed for WSSC recommended an alternative analysis takeover would be one of the things we would have to fund. And of course, we'd look out for new infrastructure issues. I'll read a couple of excerpts from that regulation I mentioned to you. WSSC evaluation. We have to specify what additional corrective actions, if any, will be necessary to bring the system into conformance with WSSC standards. Copies of WSSC lists are distributed to the appropriate engineering divisions, and then the work begins. If the applicant reaffirms this takeover request, it will concurrently be required to reimburse WSSC for its system evaluation costs, pay WSSC for estimated systems rehabilitation costs, and also agree to pay any additional accrual rehabilitation costs should those costs exceed the initial estimates. Those are some facts that we brought forward, and based on our conversation, speaking in my old Army investigating officers mode, the evidence indicates that if we were to, if there's an intent on the city to hand this water system over to WSSC, all aspects of their involvement would have to be paid for by us, and the evidence indicates, and the conversations with them, we would have to correct in some fashion the deficiencies that currently exist with the system before they would accept it. And so we wanted to come back to you and tell you what we thought initially, found out initially. As you may know, in my days in Georgia, I managed a $65 million worth of construction projects for various things. You know, if the council was intent to move forward with this, it would be my understanding that, you know, we would need at least $250,000 set aside to hopefully to get past the evaluation. We won't know specifically how much that would cost because we'd have to get the WSSC engineer evaluators on site, and then we would not be able to finish to estimate accurately what the cost would be because we don't know how deeply they're going to want to dig, and I suspect that it will be they want to protect themselves. At the end of it all, there would be a punch list, and you're all familiar with that, like construction, or, you know, of things that we would have to correct to proceed with the process. And of course, they recommended that we would get a consultant organization to help us go through this, because we have nobody, you know, if Jose and Hong took this on, they would not have the time to manage the department, and then we'd have other operational issues. So I'd like to stop right there, and if there's any direction from the council, this is something we can discuss next week at the budget, since it basically becomes a budgetary discussion, but I'm open for it. Thank you very much.
Well, I'd like to say thank you to you and the city staff for meeting with them and giving that review. I'm going to somewhat oversimplify, but ask you a question kind of burrowing down. So the big problem we have is the tuber location with the pipes. But from what I'm understanding you're saying, they would probably want us to fix the tuber location before they take it. So we would...
Yes.
So we would fix the problem, that part of why we were looking at possibly going to WSSC for, before they would even take it.
Well, yes, and the fact that they recommended that we get a consultant to do an analysis as to whether we ought to do it at all was telling, in that, you know, we would get somebody and somebody would crunch the numbers, and this isn't math, this is just arithmetic. We have 90 miles of pipes, and if they all need to be redone and the costs associated with it, and the question might be whether we want to do it ourselves or you know, and hand it over to them. I'm not sure we can do it that quickly, or make some deal where we pay them, or we pledge to pay them the estimated amount of repairs for the next 20 years. I don't know if they accept that, but that might be one way to do it. But the evidence indicates from my discussion is that they would want the water system up to their standards before they took it. And I don't know if they'd be flexible any other way.
So again, we would be paying that cost. And any other questions, comments? Councilwoman Harrison, I think, was first, and then we'll go to council member of staff.
No, I just wanted to add to what you were saying, Al, in my conversation with them, and I appreciate your detailed explanation. Certainly give the information for the residents to hear, all that we're exploring all options and looking at whatever we can do to resolve this problem effectively and efficiently, which we're already doing internally. And also just wanted to make sure that people were aware that selling or buying, or WSSC buying this system is not an option. So we talked about that as well. And you are correct that they pretty much specified and emphasized that regulations must be up to their standards before we could turn it over to WSSC. So just wanted to clarify that. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman of staff.
I just really appreciated, to Councilman Harrison's point, staff's time working on this, and Councilman Harrison and the mayor for working on this as well. I think we all agreed that we wanted to see what all of our options were and make sure that we were taking a look at what was out there. It sounds like this is probably not going to be the best step for us, since it looks like WSSC wants us to take care of the whole problem before they'd even consider taking the system on. But at least it gives us a data point to be able to work with, and we know that we've at least explored this option for when lawmakers and others ask us in the future. So I appreciate your diligence on this. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Wolford?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First of all, thank you, Councilwoman Harrison, for participating, as well as staff for the good works on this as well. And I just want to make a couple points, want to make sure I understand, or want to clarify for everybody, which is even with the repairs made and so forth, they're not willing to pay us anything for it.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. They made no offers to pay us.
Yeah, that's what I figured as much. So for us, it's all the expense of going through the effort and then not reaping the rewards.
And if it met their standards, they would take it over.
Yeah.
But no exchange of funds.
Okay, that's what I figured. And then another thing, I believe they too are engaged in significant efforts across their system to replace piping. And I believe also that they commented that they were pretty far behind in their endeavors. Do you remember what conversations were around that? Yeah.
I'm not aware of that, Mr.
Yeah.
So they mentioned that they are experiencing some issues with getting the pipes replaced because people are falling behind in their payments. So they don't have the money to make those replacements in a timely manner. So they had to cut back actually on the amount of replacements they could actually do.
Thank you. So, I mean, yet another area, I think, where our efforts are ahead of the neighbors, if you will, in terms of our efforts to improve our systems. And I think it's consistent with what we've seen elsewhere, which is pipes are getting older everywhere. And there's sure to be more problems in their system. I suspect we know more about ours and the relative work that needs to be done than they do over the course of the very or significantly more expansive infrastructure they have to manage. So I'm not surprised by this at all. Again, thank you for the good work. So do appreciate you chasing down this potential, and good to have the information.
Yes, go right ahead, Council.
Just to your point, Councilmember Wolfley, I just wanted to make sure I state specifically during our conversation, they mentioned that they typically replace 55 miles of pipe per year, but because of, this was pre-COVID, but because of during the pandemic and quarantine, they have only been able to replace 37 miles per year. But I also want to just publicly thank WSSC and Carla Reed and her team for meeting with myself and the mayor, and also city staff. So I just really appreciate their diligence as well. Thank you.
Yeah, and I think not piling on, but one of the things we know is that WSSC also just took on a 10-year project to do improvement for stormwater management and all, which is going to be a cost burden on them as well, along those lines. So, several things. All right. Are there any other comments or questions at this time?
Mayor, I believe Councilmember Gardner would like a question, has his hand raised.
Oh, Councilor Gardner, please go right ahead.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, City Clerk Wilda Hernandez. Thank you. I just wanted to say thank you to staff for doing this, for following through, and to Councilwoman Woman Harrison. It's rather disappointing the outcome, but it is what it is, and we're just going to have to find some sort of solution to provide for our neighbors. Just rather disappointing, but we're going to keep trying and getting this resolved. But thank you all who are involved. Thank you all.
Thank you, Councilman. Again, thank you, staff, so very much for all you did. as well as council members for your support in doing that. All right. Hearing no other comments at this point, we will move on to the discussion about the outdoor restaurant grant program, and I will turn that over, I believe, to Councilman Dufour Wolfe. I think he was spearheading that discussion.
Well, I'm not sure it's uniquely mine. I think there are a number of folks that were interested in this. I do know that one of the things that's come to our attention has been the need for, over the last couple of years, for people who have restaurants and such similar establishments to accommodate, COVID-19 protocols, and there's been a lot of effort to move to outdoor environments, and I think that that's a continuing need, and I think we ought to be providing some support for that in our community. I think it also livens up the community, it livens up retail areas to go somewhere where you can walk in a shopping mall or a neighborhood and you can see outdoor activity. I think provides a bit of life to the community and provides an extra feature and a benefit for people living here.
Yeah. If I may, I'm going to just toss a quick question out, if you don't mind. Do we currently have funds available from fiscal year 22?
Well, there's nothing that's been appropriated or a line item specifically for this.
Right.
That answer is no. I mean, there's I have a contingency account that, could probably provide $25,000 or so if the council is so inclined, but there's no specific line item.
Right, but understand.
Yeah, so that's.
But as a contingency, because I was thinking along the lines of something being able to happen as we're coming up on the summer months and being able to do. So I was just following along with you. Go ahead, Mayor Pro Tem.
Yeah, I just wanted to add to what my colleague said. I think what we're realizing is that there's a lot of people that are still apprehensive about dining indoors, although we're in this unique hybrid environment. And so any support that we can give to our businesses, especially those who've just gotten to the city of Bowie, right? District 3 is honored to have 2 new restaurants opening up. And what we saw over the last 2 years is places like Anne Arundel County and Frederick have these robust outdoor businesses. And if we can emulate something like that, I think that would be great. So here's my thought to staff. Sorry, Councilman, I'll let you, just give me 2 seconds. Is that we create some type of grant program with a budget of up to $20,000 and allot through the process at max $2,500 to each business that does apply to this program. And that's all I have to say. Councilman, did you want to take it from there?
Councilman Bostell?
Yeah, so one of the things we saw during the pandemic is that a lot of the folks who were able to take advantage of the billions of dollars of aid that was out there were often fairly large institutions. And we saw that a very large number of small businesses were really cut out of the process because they didn't have the lobbyists or the lawyers at the time as they were dealing with a million challenges to be able to apply for things. The city got, a good bit of money last year. And I like this program a lot and appreciate my colleagues for bringing it up. I think $2,500 is a perfectly reasonable amount of money to aid small businesses, in particular in the city, who are trying to really capitalize on outdoor dining. We know of a number of small businesses that struggled through the pandemic, that barely held on, that got into debt. And so this is a relatively small thing we can do. I mean, we spend $200,000 on a glorified PowerPoint presentation with Bowie BIC. I certainly think that we owe it to our small businesses who need this, in particular our restaurant businesses who are doing important work with physical retail space, keeping a lot of our local communities going. I think we owe it to them to try and do something like this. I'm comfortable with $20,000. I'd be comfortable if we wanted to go lower to $15K even, but I think $2,500 a piece I think is reasonable to be able to contribute something to businesses that are trying to capitalize on outdoor seating. So I appreciate my colleagues bringing this forward.
I think from hearing what we're hearing, City Manager, is it possible for staff to take?
Well, if you could, sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry, Councilwoman And Bamadu, please go right ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think one thing that I was going to say is I think this is a really, really great initiative, especially during a time where we are focused on attracting the right types of businesses to Bowie. A lot of the concerns, I know Councilman Boafo can align with this. A lot of the concerns that we've heard from residents, particularly in District 3 and 4, have really been around the fact that there are not a lot of diverse eating options and dining options within the city of Bowie, and that a lot of those restaurant options tend to be in Annapolis or Crofton. So I think this would be a really great way to retain some of the restaurants that we already do have, and then also continue to attract the ones that we'd like to continue to see in our community. I think for me, I'm not usually a fan of grants and giving away money. So I think given this time with our economic development initiatives, this is pretty timely. And then the last thing that I would add, I think what I would like to see, should we move forward with this in an application process, is that we are really just being very intentional with our questions that we're asking for those businesses that are applying. Because one thing I would hate to see is another replication, like Councilman Stev said, where you had the larger grant that was available for businesses, and then these larger corporations that didn't necessarily always need it took advantage of those funds. And so I'd like to see some intentionality on our part, and I know that staff will do this because they always do, but I'd like to see some intentionality around just the types of questions that we're asking, make sure that these are for businesses that actually really do need it within the city and not just applying because they see a grant application or a possibility for free money. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councilwoman.
Good question.
Councilwoman Harrison.
Yeah, I think this is a great idea. Of course, we kind of talked about it one of our last meetings, but I wanted to find out what the parameters are. What are we paying for? I want to know what that money will cover.
Yeah, I think the idea, Councilwoman, is that any business, again, as we head into the summer months, those who have the actual physical space to put some level of outdoor furniture or chairs, and or need to purchase new ones for whatever reason, right? 2 years indoors and we need something else that's going to attract customers. I think that's the parameters, right? I think the Councilwoman and Debbie Madu said something important, which I know we did this maybe a year or two ago when we really were in the thick of the pandemic, but it's setting the parameters to ensure that say a business that doesn't have anything to do with outdoor dining or retail doesn't apply to a program like this, right? This is really to attract those who still do feel apprehensive in supporting those small businesses that want to kind of refurbish their outdoor presence.
Another question. John Henry, do we have any businesses that have made inquiries to date?
None to me. And just for point of information, we have 122 food establishments listed in our restaurant guide. Take out about 11 or so that are actually outside the city limits but are pretty closely identified with us. And let's just say for discussion, we've got 100 restaurants here in Buoy. Just to give you a figure about the total population of restaurants within the city limits.
Mr. Mayor, just what we need to move on, one is a vote authorizing a certain amount of money to be set aside for this, and what the grants would be, so we can record that. All of our grants of this nature would be a reimbursable grant. So if somebody were to purchase new outdoor dining furniture, they would just sort of like filtration problem issue. They would make the purchase, they would apply for the grant, make the purchase, and be reimbursed. To make sure that the furniture was actually purchased and the funds weren't used for other things.
Yeah, there would be some additional parameters. I'm sorry, Councilman, did you want to comment?
No, we were just agreeing that reimbursable makes sense, yeah.
Okay. All right, I think what we're hearing now is that we would like staff to take a look at this and
do we need a formal motion? Yeah. Okay, so could I move then that we establish a $20,000 grant program for restaurants in the incorporated city limits of Bowie, specifically to purchase or to have reimbursed up to $2,500 for the purchase of outdoor dining materials with a simple application process, reimbursable up to 6 months of purchase.
Second.
Second.
Sorry. No, point of clarification here. Maybe I missed this, but did we add in what the max amount was in that motion?
25.
Okay, cool. Just wanted to make sure.
Yes.
Yeah.
Second?
So it's been moved and properly second. Any discussion at this time? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor, please respond with an aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed, same favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same favor? Hearing none, motion carries.
We'll write it up and send it out to you all so you can see what the final document, final plan will be, and then we'll start to implement.
Thank you, City Manager.
Mr. City Manager, can you just clarify where the grant money would be coming from, the budget line item?
Well, right now, the only place vacant would be the city manager contingency account, unless the finance director can find some other sources. I'd rather not take it from the unused fund balance, since we will have some money we haven't spent yet.
Yeah.
Thank you,
From
just
that
wanted to make sure.
contingency. Yeah. Okay. All right.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
It's been moved and properly second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please respond with an aye. Aye. Opposed, same favor. Hearing none, motion carries. I'd like to again thank staff for all your hard work and all you put in as we continue through this budget process. We do appreciate you. City Clerk and all those, happy week to you, and I'm trying to think the proper term, and it just slipped me, but I'll just say Clerks Week. Administrative Clerks Week.
Congratulations to you all finishing before 10 o'clock.
And I would like to say thank you to the entire council too, for all your support and for all you do. And again to the citizens, for everybody being engaged. So thank you and have a good night.